Welcome. I'm Jessica Tietjen, and this is the Evolving to Exceptional podcast, where we talk about reaching peak performance in our workplaces, homes, and communities so that we can live our best life possible, an exceptional life. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Evolving to Exceptional podcast. This week, I have a special message that is really directed to the CEOs. To the CEOs and executive leaders of organizations and board members to just check in. And while I wrote this message in this article in the month of December after the assassination or the murder of the UnitedHealthcare CEO, I think it's appropriate to continue to share because I think that this sentiment continues to exist. And it's important for CEOs and leaders to not ignore it, but to acknowledge it and consider it and process it. Dear CEOs, how are you right now? I recognize you're busy running a multi-million or even billion-dollar business and probably don't spend much time on social media or watching the news. However, I'm sure by now you're at least aware of the murder of the UnitedHealthcare CEO. I wanted to check in and see how you're doing navigating this latest tragedy. It can be scary to see someone in the same role be so viciously murdered. At a minimum, I'm confident the thought has crossed your mind. Does this mean I could be at risk? Are you worried about your safety? Are you thinking about the people who might blame you for the decisions you've made that directly harm them or their families? Do you really know what people think about you? Do you truly feel confident that you are a beloved and not a loathed leader? Do you deeply sense that you are safe to keep acting in the same way without experiencing negative consequences? You might be experiencing a few different reactions right now depending on your past patterns and neural networks. If your body has perceived and logged this tumultuous time as stressful, then your nervous system is likely dysregulated. You might be experiencing a fight response. You might be feeling a need to fight back and justify your actions or argue defensively that you are not to blame. You may be gearing up with a solid defense for why you are not what others accuse. You might feel a sense of solidarity and a desire to fight to see the perpetrator permanently put away for his crimes. Or you might be feeling a sense of flight. You might be tempted to hide or distance yourself from unfamiliar people. You may spend more time at home or away from the conflict or the people who view you in a negative light. You may avoid interactions with those you deem beneath you or unimportant. You may avoid conversations and discussions that might require your input on these controversial topics. Or maybe you're in a freeze state. You might be frozen, unsure what to do or how to take action to protect yourself and your business. Doing nothing may feel like the simplest choice, hoping it will blow over. If you act like nothing's going on and say nothing about it, maybe no one will bring it up. You may even disassociate, turning to substances or excessive working to numb yourself from feeling anything at all. Or maybe you'll go into a fawn state. You might be launching a campaign to communicate and differentiate yourself as a caring, supportive, and empathetic leader. You may be trying to show people you care about them even as you scheme in secret about needs to do more with less people. You may attempt to say the right things to appease others even if they contradict your intent or identity. Or it's possible, though maybe even more concerning, that you remain unaware, unmoved, unimpacted, and ignorant of the impending risks. If this is the case, you are in a particularly precarious position. Trust me when I tell you, generally people are pissed at not just healthcare, although that is certainly a huge target, but at corporate greed in general. Unfortunately, you've taken on the top role, and with it comes rewards and recognition, but also responsibility. Whether you like it or not, you and your role represent the most visible target at which people are aiming their anger, angst, and frustration. I know it's tempting to argue, but this is just business. To claim it's just the way of the world and thus you are not responsible for the role you play within it. But please hear me when I say you are very much responsible. Every system, structure, and strategy that fuels our corporate market is a construct created by human beings. Everything that exists does so because we've created it, evolved it, and allowed it to exist in our reality. By shifting blame away from humans and onto the constructs we've created, we ensure nothing will ever change. Because as of this writing, the only ones that can possibly change anything or create something new are human beings. At least this will be true until either AI surpasses us or other beings step into our world to either help or hurt us. Even if or when this happens, the possibility that either would make choices in our best interest isn't a particularly high probability. By blaming the constructs, we absolve ourselves of having to acknowledge, take accountability, and act to deconstruct and recreate something new. To do so, human beings must become aware of, acknowledge, and act in ways that create change. While undoubtedly our system structures and strategies are perpetuating the problems and pains we are experiencing as humans, they will never change without human intervention. Which begs the question, who will intervene to bring the changes we need? This brings me back to you. In your role as CEO, along with other top leaders in the world, as the humans with the most money, influence, power, and authority, how will you enter and approach this era of intelligence? Will you hoard it all for yourself and your inner circle of humans? Will you perpetuate the problems and pain by maintaining the systems that are causing them? Will you dismiss or ignore the disengagement and detachment of the humans you lead? Will you refuse to recognize and acknowledge the problems your participation in the past may have caused? Will you continue to consciously create and trigger trauma, perpetuate pain, and harm your fellow humans? Will you be the critical, cautious, and cold leader that causes confusion, disconnection, discomfort, and fear? Will you go into this next era known and remembered as a leader of the past? Or will you be recognized and appreciated as a leader of the future? Will you expand your perspectives and enhance your awareness of the experiences of others? Will you identify and transform the systems, strategies, and structures that are hurting and harming humanity? Will you share your power, control, and resources to create a more exceptional outcome for everyone? Will you acknowledge your participation in the problematic system and authentically, vulnerably, and willingly lean into finding solutions? Will you choose to be the creative, compassionate, and courageous human that leads humanity into the future? Mark my words, the time is coming. Sooner or later, humans will wake up, unite, and the world will change. It's already happening. For better or worse, things are beginning to change. I've long believed it's time for the corporate practices to come to an end. I think many would happily murder the corporation if they knew where to aim to end its reign of terror. But corporations are entities, not living things, making them impossible to kill. And despite recent events, the CEO is not the next best thing. We know from history the truth of the saying, cut off the head and another will inevitably rise to take its place. This system is built to perpetuate the current practices and patterns that are causing the impassioned reaction we see from people all over the world. What must we do to bring change? Transformation is precipitated by a process of rejection, revolt, and the relentless call for change by society. Transformation of a deeply rooted system is a long, intentional struggle involving dissent, disruption, and deliberate actions by those within them in powerful positions. The transformation of corporate culture requires a deliberative, iterative process, driven by clear vision, committed leadership, and employee engagement. It involves aligning systems, fostering psychological safety, addressing resistance, and embedding new behaviors to create lasting change. Who will ultimately be the bold leaders in positions of power with the courage to take action? As a powerful CEO or leader, you must ask yourself the big questions. What are you going to do? Who are you going to be as a leader? How will you be remembered? What an amazing gift and opportunity you get to help shape the future of humanity. Honestly, I wish I could have a seat at those tables, to engage in discussions about how to reshape the world that exists today into something even better. I hope with all my heart you will hear this plea and answer the call to step boldly into a space few have the courage to go. To truly transform the way people work and live in a way that helps all of humanity. I invite you to step forward despite the risks and fear that might prevent you from doing so, to consider the creative, compassionate, and courageous role you can play in rethinking the future of work, to step outside the corporate box and creatively consider new ways of working, to truly reflect on your values and what's most important for the future of all humans in order to compassionately connect with others in new and improved ways of working, to deeply sense what authentic actions you can take to courageously lead the way to a better future for all of humanity. What will you do next? Everyone is watching and waiting to see what you will choose. I recognize this is a bold call to action and a very direct and potentially triggering communication for CEOs who mean well and might still be struggling with what the appropriate steps are to take to create more effective and impactful outcomes. This is why I have spent the last few years researching, learning, developing, and creating a new approach, a new system, a better set of workplace practices that are going to positively impact the performance of people. The time is now for us to step out of the past and into the present and future and do what is most necessary to support the humans both in and impacted by our businesses and organizations and workplaces. If you are interested in taking this bold step, I encourage you to reach out to me, to connect with me, and at least have a conversation. At least talk about where you are currently and what you might do differently that would be truly transformational for the people within your workplace. As always, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and week. I want to remind you to always keep evolving, keep growing, keep rewiring those neural pathways so that you can live your best life, an exceptional life. I'll be back again next week with another episode.